What is intersectionality? Intersectionality is a way of understanding how different parts of a person's identity work together to shape their life experiences. People are not defined by only one thing, such as gender, race, caste, or class. Instead, many social factors combine and influence each other at the same time. Because of this, people experience privilege, discrimination, and inequality in very different ways. For example, the life of a poor woman is not shaped only by gender. Her economic condition also affects her opportunities. Similarly, a black woman may experience racism and sexism together, not separately. Intersectionality helps us understand these overlapping experiences and explains why a single explanation is often not enough to understand social problems. The idea of intersectionality teaches us that society is very complex. Human experiences cannot be explained through only one category. Factors such as race, class, gender, sexuality, caste, religion, citizenship, age, and disability all interact with one another. These social divisions are connected like threads in a web. They shape people's lives together rather than separately. Intersectionality is therefore an analytical tool. It helps individuals and groups understand how systems of power operate in society. It also helps people identify why some groups suffer more inequality than others. Instead of looking at one form of oppression alone, intersectionality studies how different forms of oppression overlap and reinforce each other. An important argument is that intersectionality is not entirely new. Even before the word became popular in universities, ordinary people around the world practiced intersectional thinking in their struggles for survival and justice. Many social movements naturally understood that people's problems are connected to multiple systems of power. One important example comes from African American women activists during the 1960s and 1970s in the United States. During this period, many progressive movements were fighting for justice. Civil rights movements mainly focused on racism, feminist movements focused on women's rights, labor unions focused on economic class and workers' rights. However, black women found themselves excluded from all these movements in different ways. Black women were affected by racism because they were black. They also faced sexism because they were women. Many of them suffered economic exploitation as workers. Because each movement focused on only one issue, black women's experiences were ignored. Anti-racist movements often centered the experiences of black men. Mainstream feminism mainly represented white middle-class women. Labor movements focused mostly on class struggles without fully addressing race and gender. As a result, black women realized that their struggles could not be understood through only one category. They developed intersectional thinking to explain how racism, sexism, and class oppression work together in their lives. Intersectionality became a way for them to create space for their voices and demand a more complete understanding of justice. Another powerful example comes from colonial India through the work of Savitribai Phule. She lived during the 19th century and is remembered as one of India's first modern feminists. Along with her husband Jyotirao Phule, he fought against many forms of oppression at the same time. Savitribai Phule did not focus on only one issue. She challenged caste discrimination, gender inequality, religious oppression, and economic injustice together. She believed that these social problems were deeply connected. She worked for women's education, fought against caste oppression, and supported marginalized communities such as Adivasis and Muslims. She also challenged harmful social customs. For example, Hindu widows were often forced to shave their heads and lived lives of humiliation. Savitribai opposed these practices and supported widow remarriage. She opened shelters for pregnant widows and worked to protect vulnerable women. She also started schools for workers, women, and rural communities. During times of famine, she organized relief efforts to help suffering people. Although the word intersectionality did not exist during her lifetime, her work clearly reflected intersectional thinking. Her activism showed that social justice cannot be achieved by addressing only one form of inequality. Her life proves that intersectional practice has deep historical roots outside the Western world. Intersectionality should not be judged simply by whether people use the correct academic language. What matters is what intersectionality actually does. It should help people understand social problems more deeply and find better ways to solve them. To demonstrate this, the authors use the example of the 2014 FIFA World Cup in Brazil. At first, sports may seem unrelated to social inequality. Many people think sports are only about entertainment, competition, and talent. However, intersectional analysis reveals that sports are deeply connected to systems of power. The World Cup became a useful example because it exposed how politics, economics, culture, and inequality all interact. The authors explain this through four domains of power: interpersonal, disciplinary, cultural, and structural. These domains are different ways power operates in society. The first is the interpersonal domain of power. This refers to everyday experiences and interactions between people. It focuses on how individuals experience privilege or discrimination in daily life based on their identities. Soccer is often called the people's game because almost anyone can play it. Unlike expensive sports such as tennis or skiing, soccer requires very little equipment. This creates the image of a fair and equal playing field where talent alone decides success. However, intersectionality reveals that the playing field is not truly equal. Access to opportunities in sports depends on factors such as gender, class, race, and nationality. For example, the most celebrated and financially rewarded form of soccer is men's soccer. Women's soccer receives far less attention, investment, and recognition. This shows how gender inequality exists even within sports. Similarly, poor children may struggle to access training facilities or professional opportunities. Athletes from marginalized racial or national backgrounds may face discrimination. Thus, personal experiences in sports are shaped by multiple social identities at once. The second is the disciplinary domain of power. This refers to institutions, rules, and systems that regulate people's behavior. Bureaucracies, governments, corporations, and organizations all exercise disciplinary power. In the case of the World Cup, FIFA controlled the event through strict regulations and policies. FIFA decided which countries could host the tournament, how money would be distributed, and how rules would be enforced. Though soccer appears to belong to the people, powerful institutions actually control the sport behind the scenes. These institutions often prioritize profits and corporate interests over ordinary citizens. Decisions made by large organizations can deeply affect local communities without giving them much voice or control. Intersectionality helps us see how institutional power shapes social inequality. The third is the cultural domain of power. This invokes ideas, media representations, beliefs, and cultural narratives that influence how people think about society. Brazil promoted the World Cup as a symbol of national pride and economic success. The event was presented as proof that Brazil had become a powerful modern nation. Media narratives celebrated the country's culture, passion, and global importance. However, when Brazil lost 7-1 to Germany in the semi-final match, media narratives quickly changed. The loss was described as a national humiliation. Public discussions focus heavily on shame, failure, and embarrassment. This shows how culture shapes public understanding of events. Media and cultural narratives can hide deeper social problems by focusing only on emotions, nationalism, or stereotypes. Intersectionality helps reveal how cultural representations influence the way inequality is understood. The fourth is the structural domain of power. This refers to larger systems such as the economy, law, government, and political institutions that organize inequality in society over long periods of time. The World Cup exposed serious structural problems in Brazil. The government spent billions of dollars building stadiums and infrastructure for the tournament. At the same time, many citizens lacked proper healthcare, education, housing, and transportation. This created widespread anger. Massive protests broke out across Brazil. Protesters argued that public money should have been used to improve people's lives instead of funding a global sporting event. One famous slogan said, "We want hospitals up to FIFA standards." These protests revealed how global capitalism and political decisions often benefit wealthy corporations and elites while ordinary people bear the cost. Poor communities were displaced, public services were neglected, and inequality increased. Intersectionality helps explain how economic systems, politics, and social divisions work together to create these injustices. Intersectionality is a powerful way of understanding society. It teaches us that human experiences are shaped by many interconnected factors rather than a single identity. Race, caste, class, gender, sexuality, religion, and other social divisions constantly interact with one another. Intersectionality also reminds us that systems of power operate in many forms through personal experiences, institutions, cultural ideas, and large social structures. By studying these connections, intersectionality helps people better understand inequality and fight for more inclusive forms of justice.